I have to ask you, Jacki, let's start with that. The media focusing on Biden's low approval ratings. And as we go into the State of the Union tomorrow, is this not the most successful first year of a presidency ever?
Well, what's interesting now is that, we're not hearing the president's every little move on television every day. And we got so used to that with Trump because he was so interested in making news at every moment and being the center of attention that we lost complete track of policy. It was all about politics. And now we've got Biden, who's really honing in on policy and just putting his head down and getting the work done. And the media doesn't know what to do with itself. They're looking for the horse race at every turn. I was listening to you earlier and you were talking, about the Republicans and CPAC and this white nationalist conference that's going on. I mean, that's the conversation that's happening on the Republican side. And meanwhile, Biden administration is putting its head down and just getting the work done. And that isn't as flashy and fancy for the media, but it's important to report. And they're ignoring those stories because they want to focus again on the horse race because it's the easiest thing for them to do. They're used to it.
Well, and also, as you've pointed out, God bless Twitter for us still being able to hear your voice, is just, you said, Putin used Trump to weaken the U.S. We are weaker now in our divisiveness, just as Putin intended. It's unfathomable to me that Americans are rooting for Russia against a sovereign democracy, but here we are. And again, I keep saying, Jacki, why is the media, when they're interviewing any Republican, not putting this entire story in context, and not just starting with 2016, starting with Manafort installing the Putin puppet in Ukraine, them overthrowing him, and installing Trump here in America. I mean, it's all right through the impeachment over Ukraine.
Yeah,
it's all one story.
It's pull your hair out infuriating to watch people say they're just now realizing how all of this is interconnected. I'm hesitant to tell people to go to investigaterussia.org because every time you guys flood it, my rates go up. It costs me more to host the site.
Sorry.
But it's all up there as an archive. And the reason why we started Committee to Investigate Russia originally was because we knew that this was a national security threat. We knew that Trump's entanglements with Russia were problematic for this country. He is deeply in debt to Russian oligarchs. We know this because U.S. banks would never help him. And then all of a sudden, Deutsche Bank turned around and started lending him money again. And they were, in fact, the bank that was sanctioned for laundering Russian money. So we know that Trump is tied to Russia. We know that his financing has come from Russia. Both of his brilliant sons have admitted as much.
Jacki, do you feel like a lot of his debt coming due at a time when Russian assets are being frozen worldwide is a problem of some sort for him?
Well, that's interesting to me, too. It'd be interesting to see what happens to his finances when the money starts flowing and all of a sudden they come calling for his debts. I don't think it's any accident that he absconded with 15 boxes of classified documents. They talk about how he had to leave the White House in such a hurry, but he somehow managed to get 15 boxes of classified documents to Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what you plan on doing with those documents. I mean, he sure as heck didn't read them when he was in office.
Yeah.
So now he's going to do some light reading now that he's on vacation again at Mar-a-Lago. It doesn't make any sense other than if you intend to do something with those and monetize them in some way. And that's the part that people aren't paying attention to.
Oh, man. Is that the next shoe to drop? We're going to find out what intel he gave to Putin on Ukraine. I mean, he
stood in the Oval Office and gave Russians information that he had gotten from the Israelis.
Yeah.
Imagine what he would do when he's not in the Oval Office. There are no boundaries here. Trump looks out for two things. He looks out for himself and he looks out for his money.
Yep.
And both of those things are involved here. If he can't pay back his debts, then his personal safety, he has to imagine, would be at risk.
Yeah. Well, you
figure out how to pay back his finances, and he's got to figure out how to continue to ingratiate himself to the oligarchs whom Putin owns.
Yeah. And you distilled that on Twitter. When you're heavily in debt to a foreign adversary and you take classified government documents home when you leave office, it's going to raise some questions as to what you intend to do with those incredibly valuable assets. I mean, Jacki, what do you make of this? Travis, what are we hearing? Joyce Vance tweeted about it, just about the Kremlin. It looks like we're getting confirmation from the Kremlin that the same stuff that was in the Mueller report and the Senate intelligence report that, Putin. But I mean, are they releasing that? You know what I mean? Like, we're not sure, because it's basically confirming, yes, of course, Putin helped install Trump. I mean, what do you make of it coming from the Kremlin?
I went back to this old article that Natasha Bertrand had written a few years back about Trump's policy. I mean, he doesn't really have policies. He just kind of spews stuff before he was running for president. But he was all for Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. And then all of a sudden, the GOP platform was changed at the behest of the Trump campaign, that we no longer would provide lethal aid to Ukraine. I think they changed the word to appropriate assistance as opposed to lethal assistance. All of a sudden, he's on the side of Putin and he's praising him, and he's throwing himself really at the feet of the Russian dictator. You just take a look at the visuals that came out of Helsinki when he said that Trump said he trusted Putin over his own intelligence community. I mean, this has been ongoing. He's been doing the bidding of Putin for years. Putin set this up not only so that Ukraine would be weakened, he was trying to weaken NATO, right? So that there wouldn't be the strong NATO alliance if he did go into Ukraine. He was trying to keep Ukraine desperately out of NATO. And now here we are at this crossroads where we don't want to start any sort of world war, but we want to give as much support to the sovereign democracy as possible. I think it's really important that we look back and say, we didn't just get here overnight, that we got here because we propped up this ally of Putin, essentially, and allowed him for 4 years to do all of Putin's bidding inside the United States. This disinformation campaign is on purpose. I mean, the reason why we've got people in this country who are rooting for Putin over the United States and the U.S. president and U.S. national security and national policy is because Putin laid that groundwork.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I saved this one for you. Cameron tweets, Colonel Vindman told me that Trump's delay in military aid absolutely hurt Ukraine's ability to defend itself and that there was no question it emboldened Vladimir Putin. Again, where are these questions in the questions to any Republican?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it should be asked over and over again. Not only ask every Republican lawmaker if they stand behind Trump's endorsement of Putin, but also to talk about how Trump weakened Ukraine. And let's go back to impeachment and why he was impeached, was attempting to extort President Zelensky in order to get him to fabricate information about Joe Biden. I mean, this is all interconnected.
Yep.
This didn't happen in a vacuum. The intention was to weaken Ukraine. I mean, Putin believes that Ukraine should be part of his empire, his rebuilt empire. I don't even know what he thinks he's going to create. He's going to go back to the Soviet Union, which we know has been defunct now for 2 decades. So I don't know what it is Putin hopes to get out of this. I don't know.
As I keep saying, Ukraine already overthrew their Putin puppet.
Yes.
And they'll do it again. And guess what?
And guess what? Installed by Paul Manafort.
Thank you. And I was just saying, we overthrew our Putin. Manafort installed Putin puppet here in the United States. It's like Putin is not winning. I mean, this threatening nukes and all this to when Ukraine doesn't have nukes is it's madness. I mean, he's really...
also let's look back at Paul Manafort. I mean, he's so key in all of this. He worked with Trump in the 80s. They were not strangers. So then after he installs Putin's puppet in Ukraine, he volunteers to work for the Trump campaign for free. That was no accident. And that happened at the time of the Republican convention when the platform on Ukraine was changed. Yeah. This didn't come out of thin air. This has all been building for a really long time. Paul Manafort being key to a lot of it.
And by the way, Trump does, as you were saying, Travis, he does use Whitey's took credit for NATO this morning. Like, it's because of me that NATO's so strong. I was like, what? I mean, this Yard tweeted this morning, this is what Putin's denazification looks like. The evacuation of one of the world's most historic Jewish communities while Russian army hunts down Ukraine's Jewish president. While he's saying he's denazifying Ukraine. It's just like,
Yeah, I haven't seen the extent of the propaganda, but that's what I've heard is that Russian media is pumping out this idea that there's somehow a need to denazify Ukraine. And it's the same disinformation campaigns that we see here in the United States. I mean, people who watch Fox News, who watch right-wing propaganda media believe what they want to believe, and they're not open. You can't even have a rational conversation anymore. I'd love to have a rational conversation with somebody as to why they believe what they believe, but you can't even get there. You can't even get there with somebody who's consuming nothing but right-wing propaganda because they just aren't open to any alternative viewpoint viewpoint or alternative information. They believe that their disinformation is fact.
Yeah. Which goes to this Brian's tweet. We all owe a great debt to the Ukrainians. They are reminding us why democracy matters. They are reminding us that it's worth fighting for. And they're reminding us that in this era of fake news and alternative facts, the truth still matters.
I mean, the best line to come out of this was President Zelensky saying, "I don't need a ride. I need more help.
I need ammunition."
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know if I'm gay anymore. I don't even know. That's hot. I mean,
talk about meeting the moment and stepping up and being the true leader that your country needs. And it was laughable when they asked Trump if he would defend his country. You don't know where bravery is going to come from. I mean, we're talking about deference for bone spurs. And the guy who walked up the stairs to Air Force One with an umbrella while his son was being pelted by rain.
Because we love you best, Travis is making me inflict this on you.
And, he's not abandoning his people. He's staying and taking up arms with his countrymen. If you were in a similar situation as president, would you take up arms like Zelensky?
Well, you never know about bravery. Some people think they're brave and they're not brave, and other people don't think of themselves as very brave and they step up. You never know until you get tested.
Yeah, you're a big orange doughy pant load. You would crap your pants and run.
What is he what is he a snowman made out of?
He's a snowman made of canned hams, according to Bob Seska.
He was tested. He failed.
Yes.
He did nothing to defend this country when he was given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And he spent most of his presidency golfing. So.
I know, and I love this one. One last one before we break. Lily tweeted, Ukrainian men 18 to 60 are told to stay and fight for their country. Can you imagine the reaction of American men? Putting on a mask to protect their grandma was a bridge too far.
Yeah, right.